You are welcome back to yet another episode of the League of the Genuine. This is the only conversation that you will find on the planet that deals with the important but often ignored subject of counterfeits. Counterfeits are in every sector, so that's why we are able to pick a guest from any sector because the issue of counterfeits will definitely be present. If you're new here, we have this program every Friday. You can make a date with us and you will be able to learn and know where and how to identify and get a genuine product so that you and your family is safe. Today we are going to be talking about counterfeits, but in the financial services sector. So to kick off this discussion, I have the CEO of Camro Capital, Mr. Robert Kamanyi. I don't know if I've pronounced the name well. Please join me in welcoming him. But what does it matter how it's pronounced? How do you pronounce your name?
Yeah, it matters because sometimes people think I'm from Kenya, others think I'm from Buganda. So the pronunciation...
But for me, I think you're from Africa.
Yes, but still the dialects are different. So the right pronunciation is Kamanyi.
Kamanyi.
Yeah.
From Africa.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Kamanyi, you are welcome to this program, and I would like to give a special thanks to you for having come at short notice. We usually have a challenge interesting people in these programs. I'm sure many people don't pay a lot of attention to this. People like politics, people like music, people like comedy. For you, why is this important? Why did you come to the show?
First of all, I'd like to thank you, Fred, for this opportunity to come to your show. And for us, we feel as an organization, it's important for us to create a positive impact in the communities in which we operate. We would like to make a difference besides just offering a service that we offer, which is financial services. We would like to create awareness to the things that improve the livelihoods of people. And I believe this is the right platform for us to be able to do that.
Okay, so can you tell us what is Camro Capital? What do you do? Are you money lenders? What are you?
Yeah. So Camro Capital is a financial services company that exists to provide quick, simple, and unsecured credit.
Unsecured?
Absolutely. That is it.
So you take it on somebody's word, somebody's face value?
Not necessarily. There are certain measures that we put in place to safeguard us,
okay,
and to safeguard the money that we give out. But ultimately, we are targeting small and growing businesses that cannot easily access financing from the traditional lenders for various reasons. One, because they do not have sufficient security. They do not have the information or the records or the data that the traditional lenders need. And then even the turnaround time. We know that in the business environment, you need money now to be able to do what you need to do. But there are challenges in the financial sector, especially with the traditional lenders. The turnaround time that they take to avail financing for most of these businesses may not ultimately help.
So can you just describe the category of people that you target, and what is the threshold? Is there a limit? Can you lend somebody money to buy airtime, for example, or you lend somebody to go and buy some tomatoes and put in the market? What is your scope?
So basically, we target businesses that offer goods and services to other businesses. So if you're offering, for example, if you've if you offer stationery, maybe you've sold stationery to a big corporate company and you are waiting to be paid, maybe the corporate company tells you we are going to pay you after 30 days after you've delivered, you're out of cash for 30 days. So we come in to bridge that gap. So ultimately, we are supporting these small businesses that offer their goods and services on credit. So we are trying to bridge that credit gap so that they can access their money much earlier. So
you help them to access the money which is not yet paid to
Correct.
do other things of their business.
100%.
Robert, this program deals with fakes in services and products. One of the challenges we have in financial services is there's a lot of fakeness there as well. I want you to speak to that broadly, but also I want specifically to know if this person who has supplied stationery to a government body or a company has a markup, let's say, of 1 million shillings, and you're going to lend money at 10% or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And many private lenders are reputed for charging extortionate rates. So aren't you guys actually, in a way, contributing to, aren't you impoverishing this guy because his profit gets wiped out? And how do you address that issue that the people who are lending are charging highly, and how does PESASA do it differently, if it does?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's important that when, specifically I will speak for PESASA and Camro Capital. PESASA is a brand through which, or is the platform through which we avail our financing. Now, when it comes to the cost, we need to make sure we are relevant and that we're not there just to make money, but we are there to ensure that the client's business also grows. So I would call it responsible lending. So our rates are competitive in a sense that even when we provide the financing, it still leaves the client's business profitable to facilitate or to enable them to grow.
So you take what percentage? What's your interest rate? Somebody is watching you now and they are checking you out. You charge what rate? Because we know money lenders or other, they'll take, I don't know, 10% per month, 20%, which comes to 300% in a year.
Yes, so the way we look at it is what value are we bringing to the table?
Do you charge interest?
We charge not interest, but we charge a fee. I'll give you an example. So I'll give an example of a stationery provider, or should I say someone who has got produce and is, maybe someone has gotten coffee from the farmer and is selling it to a coffee processing company. Now, for someone like that, in order for them to make more money, they need to keep delivering several rounds of coffee, or they need to be able to supply stationery to several companies to be able to make a profit. Now, if he supplies to one company and his money is stuck there for 30 days, he can't then be able to supply to another company because his money is stuck. So what we come in to bridge that gap in a sense that we provide them financing, then they'll be able to take on another contract. So ultimately, by us intervening, they're able to then do other contracts, several other contracts. So we charge a fee based on the period that we've advanced you the money for. We also charge a fee based on the risk that we perceive of the person.
Is it a lump sum fee, or it is a fee that accrues every month?
No,
because sometimes there are delays in payment.
Agreed. Now, interest, a fee is different from interest. Interest is one that accrues on a daily basis. So while a fee is fixed for a given range. Yeah. So for example, in our case, we charge a fee maybe if you're taking money for 15 days. Yeah. We charge you a fee in the range of 2% to say 4%. Now, what does that mean? You don't look at it in isolation. When we charge you that fee, you're able to get this money, go and do additional business. So the overall cost of borrowing that money is spread across 2 transactions. the first client that you supplied and the second client that you supplied. So ultimately, that then becomes possible for you to do more business, and the cost then becomes manageable. And that has been demonstrated by the clients we've actually been getting.
One of the challenges we have seen on this program is that the financial sector is promoting counterfeit business. So how is Camro Capital ensuring that the people you are lending money to are not engaging in the selling and buying of counterfeit products?
Okay, thank you. So one of the things that we do is that our mode of operation is that we reach out to large corporate companies or large organizations, credible organizations, which are well established in each particular industry. Now, once you reach out to
credible organizations are the people you're lending to, or the people who your customer is supplying to?
who our customers are supplying to.
They have to be credible.
Credible. And they have a good history. And they are known in the market. They are well-renowned brands, because we are taking a risk on them, because ultimately they're the ones who are going to pay us. Now, we approach those companies.
So you lend to companies or individuals?
We lend to businesses. So
and you did tell me what is the limit. You can lend 100 million, you can lend 50,000.
Right now, the maximum that we lend to new customers is 30 million. Then for existing clients, we lend up to 50 million, but that can even go beyond that.
But that is not small. That is big, actually. You are not, because for a country where we even wanted to say we want to be middle income. Middle income means you earn roughly 3 million a year. Now you're talking of 50 million, you give it to somebody at once. That is quite sizable. But how do you ensure that this person you gave the 30 million or 50 million is not going to proliferate the market with counterfeits?
Yes. So
how are you checking it as Camro?
So ultimately, first of all, we do our due diligence on the client that we are availing the money for. We do our KYC, or what is known as know your customer. We do our due diligence in terms of what is that, what we find out the business they do, we find out how long they've been in business, what kind of product or service they offer. Then besides that, we also get the support of the big organizations, because they have also already done their due diligence. So with that in mind, we are then able to mitigate the risk of counterfeit, if you'd call it that.
Because so, I have some experience. There are some people who borrow money and they are engaging in fakes, and then they are arrested, or the brand owner reports them and they confiscate all the consignment and the business closes. And this person had come to Camro. Can you explain whether you think counterfeits presents a challenge to financial services in the country? Is it one of those problems you have identified?
Yeah, absolutely. Counterfeits cut across all walks of life and all sectors. So financial services is not a unique sector. Yes, there are counterfeits. Right from the point of KYC, someone can present fake documents about the business, fake identification, fake license. So all that is already counterfeit. So countering counterfeit starts from the point of onboarding the client. So that you need to counter it from that point. So
but are you doing enough as a financial services provider? Because the counterfeits are just increasing.
Yes.
And it's the trading community, the business people that are promoting it, the sale and buying of this. Do you feel, as a financial services provider, that you're doing enough, or do you feel there is something that you should do better in the KYC?
I believe we can do better. One of the ways we can do better is by sharing information. I believe in the financial services, I believe one of the counterfeits you find is multiple borrowers. I borrow from X, I go and borrow from Y, I go and borrow from Z, and ultimately you end up in a situation whereby you're not
You're
able to
over-borrowed?
exactly. So
you give a
someone-
different
yes,
set of information to this lender
Exact-
and this lender, and then the lenders clash.
Exactly. And even you as the borrower, you're not able to meet the debt. So that then leads to a situation whereby the rate of default basically increases. So if we're able to share information amongst the lenders, that would help minimize such scenarios.
But there's a CRB, Credit Reference Bureau. For you, you are not, your information is not shared on the non-bank financial services don't go on this Credit Reference Bureau. So are you suggesting that one of the ways of checking fake conduct and fake business is maybe you have a CRB that comes down to the level of non-bank?
Absolutely. So two things. One, we need that kind of setting or that kind of platform where we can get all that information as the non-bank financial institutions. But specifically for us as Camro Capital and through our platform Pesasa, we're coming up with an AI-driven method of being able to assess the credit worthiness of most of these particular lenders, or particular borrowers, whereby we collect many data points. So you collect information on an individual, and with that information you will then be able to assess the credit worthiness of a borrower.
Of the borrower.
Yes.
One of the biggest issues here, and we're going to go to the next segment, is default. There is a high default rate for loans. I think out of every 10 loans that are taken in the country, maybe the default is 40-50%. I don't know. It's quite high. And you came with your chief operating officer. I would like that you give him a chance to explain now the operational side. But as you leave, I was talking to you before you came to the stage about what we have identified as the drivers of counterfeiting. Dankani, which you see there. As you leave the stage, what do you think for you is that one thing that is causing us to, to buy and sell these counterfeits? What's that big driver for you?
I think for me, it's two things, but then I'll narrow it down to one: between affordability and concealed danger. Poverty is a key driver of counterfeits, both on the person who is consuming the good and the person who is providing the good. So,
are you saying that poor people are not entitled to take genuine things?
They're entitled to, but it's expensive to provide genuine things in this day and age. They come at a high cost. If they were coming at a cheaper cost, then everyone would be able to afford them. Yeah. Everyone wants to afford a
So for you, affordability is that thing. And what about the danger you are talking about?
Because people are not aware of the danger of counterfeits. If they knew, then maybe they would resist the temptation to buy a counterfeit.
But you said poverty. So are you saying that a poor person, even if they are aware of the danger, they will still buy a counterfeit?
Absolutely. Because you have a choice. If you have a stake, you have two stakes, yeah? One is maybe 50,000 genuine. The other one is 5,000 and counterfeit. If you're living on below $1 a day, which one would you go for? And you have to survive to the next day. If you want to survive to the next day, you have to buy a stake.
And then in the end, you'll die because the danger in the counterfeit. So it's counterproductive.
You die, but after
you live
2
for
days.
A day. Okay, Robert, I would like to thank you so much for making the time to have. We are now going to talk about the part of default and the part of the high prices and it's leading to, but I would request that your Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Stephen Kirama, also participates and talks matters, Camro, Capital, and Pesasa,
Yeah.
in the next segment. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Fred.
Okay, we need to take a break and continue our conversation here with the proprietors of Camro Capital in the financial services sector. We shall be returning with the Chief Operating Officer of the company. We're back with the second segment of this interesting conversation on counterfeits in the financial sector. As promised, we have the Chief Operating Officer of Camro Capital, who is going to come and talk to us about the issues on the ground. Mr. Stephen Waswa Chirama, welcome.
Thank you, Fred.
To the show. Your CEO has just been here and he was explaining some of the challenges that you face in the provision of, money, capital to businesses. Right now, we have an issue of high commodity prices, before we go into the main argument, how is this, the high commodity prices, how is it affecting your business?
Yes, thank you, Fred. First of all, for hosting us on this show. And quickly to answer your question, high commodity prices affect not just us as a business, but first of all, the players in the value chain. If the price falls below the cost of production of the farmer, then he's making a loss. And then along the chain, if the price is too high for the trader, then their margins are shrinking or they're out of the money. These same people in that value chain form the basis of our customers. So where they make a profit, it's a different ballgame. Where they are not making a profit, then when they're out of the money, they are unable to repay on their facilities. So in terms of commodity prices, like you said, everything else is a snowball.
So where does this end? The back ends with who?
I think
with us, the suffering wananchi. Because you, as a lender, if my margins go down because I need to spend more on food and so on, your fees or your interest doesn't go down. So there is nowhere to run if you are a member of the public.
Well, yes, and unfortunately, at the end of the day, when you look at it critically, everything else falls on the consumer at the end of the day, because everyone will try to cover their costs of operation. Everyone will try to cover to ensure that they're protecting their margins, except the consumer, because he's left bare and he's unable to make a choice on controlling of the price. And that's where the issue of counterfeit possibly comes in, because then somebody else takes advantage of this situation and presents a counterfeit product to this same consumer who is struggling with a high price on
a high price and a fake product.
Is struggling with a high price first of a genuine one. And
even
then
even the fakes, did you hear any announcement that the counterfeiters or counterfeit products, the prices were reduced? They also increase
in line with the original ones.
With the original ones.
Which then becomes
so you see the dilemma. But now there is a fight between the lender and the borrower. The lender accuses the borrower of default, that they don't want to pay. I don't know, 1 out of every many Ugandans will default on a loan. But don't you think that this default on credit might be something founded in some fake culture, some counter? Is this default actually not being promoted by counterfeits actually, in a way?
Yes and no at the same time. Some default is out of genuine loss of business. COVID is a good example. No movement, only essential goods allowed. and people lost business. Consumers were saving money because there was uncertainty. So I would rather not consume a product I usually would have consumed. So if you're trading in a product that I don't feel is essential in times of a situation like COVID, then you went out of business. So there's genuine falling out of business. There's genuine innovative products coming up and superseding an existing product that somebody may be providing. And then you have the counterfeits. You have the unwillingness to repay.
No, for example, during the standoff with Kenya, when they rejected our eggs, our maize, do you have an idea how much money was lost by traders? Because you're not going to have your truck loaded with a perishable product like maize standing at the border for 2-3 weeks. It will rot.
Sure.
And before it rots, you're forced to sell it at half price. That kind of loss is what I'm talking about. Flip it now. Put it on the side of the lender. A lot of losses are caused to businesses because of unethical practices by
from
lenders.
the lenders.
From
Okay.
the lender.
Yes.
They quote for you the following charges, the following interest rate on the loan. When you actually take the loan, they pile different rates. That's the counterfeiting I'm talking about. Can you speak as somebody in operations and with a background of banking, because you've been in banking for a decade?
Yes.
The big banks. How is the behavior of the banks, the lenders, and the behavior of the traders also being unethical and dealing in fake products, how is that conspiring to put this issue of default that we have?
First of all, lenders being unable to sell what they market or to actively service their customers.
No, lenders being fake by
Yes.
presenting one thing
and
doing the opposite,
another.
by misrepresenting, by falsifying,
Actually
by
have
faking.
A very good personal experience. I want to mention the entities involved, but one of big banks evidently fleecing a customer, not crediting checks, say for 30-45 days.
A check is banked.
A check is banked on the account.
The credit clears.
The credit doesn't clear. So a client chases the payer or the drawer of the check. The drawer of the check is forced to present his bank statement and his account is debited.
That the money went off.
Went off the drawer's account.
But it has not arrived.
It never cleared. 45-60 days.
And what does the bank say is the reason?
Been playing games. The case is in court for 15 years now. The bank is appealing. The bank lost the case, and they are appealing.
And you know, the holding of, just right there, the holding of that payment and not crediting it led to a default.
Exactly.
On a supplier, and maybe also that supplier had borrowed money to supply and defaulted in the other bank. So you see the gymnastics.
And the lender charges a default rate interest
30%
on the default that he himself has caused.
So don't you therefore think that the claim that people in this region default on loans might actually have as a causative factor the practice in the financial sector?
To an extent, yes. And I'll speak a lot more about personal experience. There are situations where the bank system itself is inadequate to actually service the customer according to the fees that has been, the fee structure that they have presented to the customer. And I know instances where the bank will say the system cannot do that.
No, but you gave an offer letter You give an offer letter. These are the terms.
Yes.
So I do my business planning in the company that based on the requirements to service this loan, this is how I'll operate. You upstage my financials in the company where I thought I would be paying you 10 million per month, and now I'm required to pay 30. So I'm out of pocket. I cannot do the business.
Certainly. And in addition to that, sometimes it's probably a genuine penalty or default rate added onto your installment for delayed payments, but there's also inability of the bank staff to adequately present it to the client. So the failure of the bank communicating to the client or the lender communicating to the client clearly for this purpose or sake of understanding is in itself counterfeit or fake. You're presenting an officer of the institution who is supposed to be representing you as a brand or as a service provider, and they are unable to critically explain a letter of offer to a client or explain a bank statement, explain deductions, explain.
So if you are a bank and you cannot train your staff to understand, first of all, the business they are lending to, because if you lend somebody a business, if you lend somebody to do a poultry business, okay, and there was a problem with some disease, some birds died, so the person cannot raise money to pay, you go to the relationship manager in the bank, and as soon as the default occurs, the first thing they think about is to sell the house, your house, because the chicken died. So is the bank in the business of selling people's property or supporting the business? Why not look at these? Okay, the birds have died. Maybe this person needs some more injection. After all, he has supermarkets to supply the eggs to, and the business survives. The immediate thing is, let's sell the house. Are you lenders in the business of selling people's property?
Well,
is that the genuine business you?
Our funding is not based on collateral, first of all. Our funding is
Based on the business.
underlying transactions
Yes.
within a business. It's basically short-term working capital credit that is advanced against an invoice that is yet to be paid by a credible buyer of a certain good or service from a vendor. So against this invoice, we are able to verify, first of all, the authenticity of the document against which we are advancing cash. We are also able to identify whether or not this particular buyer is agreeing to pay this particular proceeds on this document, which is the invoice. We normally require that the buyer pays us directly to avoid the collection risk of chasing the vendor. And once this is against an instruction from their vendor to pay us directly on the due date, and that helps us take away the issue of collateral lending. It has a lot of challenges from the authority level itself. You've had stories in the media. You've got all these issues around consent. You've got all these issues around perfection of securities and what's happening in lands, and so much lack of clarity. But then that's basically for the long-term facilities. Ours are really short-term, and we have no business securitizing facilities because we are structuring them based on underlying business-to-business relationship.
So now that, and of course we have some unscrupulous borrowers who do not want to pay. I mean, there are a few bad apples. But I'm thinking that generally somebody who is in business and borrowed, if really they are supported and the purpose of the loan is achieved and the bank is ethical, the lender is ethical, generally they would like to maintain a relationship. I would imagine that to be the case. But now that we are here, flooded with counterfeits, I asked your CEO, and I asked him whether the KYC that you do is actually providing a sufficient gate to keep away the counterfeits? You in operations, he did some explanation, but I just want to pose it to you again. You who is in operations, what steps do you take? I'm a poultry farmer. I want to borrow 50 million. So what steps do you take to ensure that I get the right medicines, whatever they are called, for my birds? The food I get does not have aflatoxins and so on, so that my final product is rejected by a big hotel, which will say we can't take this meat because we've tested. Do you have the means to check this? How do you do it?
Well, in terms of KYC, I'll say that KYC is not a once-off. Yes, it's a starting point, but in my view, or in our view from the operations standpoint, is that KYC is a continuous process. We need to keep knowing the customer, because circumstances will change time and again. The situation might not be the same at the point of onboarding as it is at the point of borrowing, or the situation might not be the same 1 year down the road. So the know your customer should be a continuous process to understand those particular underlying
dynamics.
Yes. So it opens up the opportunity for a customer to actually communicate any issues prior to the default event affecting their account, because the client will know that I have a problem. The moment they have tested this product and it falls below the quality requirements, he knows. What does he do? He tries to run around for stopgap measures. He will probably go to a money lender, try and...
But you agree your KYC should now have an anti-counterfeit, should be deeper.
Should pick that up.
Than your date of birth and give me your bank statement.
So for institutions to rehabilitate clients, there should be information available to them before it is out of hand. Sometimes rehabilitation is impossible because of the default interest. Maybe it's 1 year down the road, 6 years down the road. 6 months down the road. And it is almost impossible to throw good money after bad money.
But I have a feeling as we close this, that even you in the financial sector, I've worked for banks, and there was a case we had where the bank procured tires for a fleet of vehicles. So one of the MDs went that weekend to the national park, and before they left Masaka, the tires had burst, brand new. And I happened to be in a meeting as external counsel, and I had that issue being discussed. And so my question is, even you banks, even you financials, you are consuming counterfeits. You are buying fake tires. Your staff are going to, your staff's children fall sick, and then they get fake anti-malaria. Your staff doesn't come to work for 2 weeks just because the kid took fake medicine. Internally, you feel, is the financial sector one conscious of counterfeits on their part not to consume, or do you need more? Do you think more should be done? Because you appear to be like the rest of the public. You don't know that this is a problem.
That's an interesting one, and I think much as we may want to be conscious about consuming products of a certain level of quality, lack of information or lack of knowledge around differentiating the counterfeit from the original.
Even you, people in the financial sector,
the case in point you mentioned about tires.
Banks are buying tires. You have fleets of cars, but you're buying fake tires.
How could they differentiate between a counterfeit and an original?
So if a bank can be duped and it buys fake tires, why do you think your customer will not be duped as well? So can you make an effort to include this as a value add, as a lender?
Certainly, and it's quite important that everyone plays ball. the cooperation around every stakeholder within a certain community has to exist. Such
So
that
this is our problem. It is
such
not a
that
government
you
problem.
have the authorities collaborating with the consumers, the brand owners collaborating with the enforcers of the trademarks and the quality, the standards, even the owners of the information. Somebody who knows what a genuine Hankook or Pirelli or Dunlop should look like or should have, especially the trademark owners, should be able to come out
So
and
we
say,
should be coming to you guys to train you, but we need to take a break. We're returning with the last segment of this discussion. We are back with the last and final segment of our conversation on the League of the Gen, where we are talking about counterfeits in the financial sector. Mr. COO, in operations of provision of financial products, one of the things as a practicing lawyer that I have found is that there is very casual compliance with the law. You guys lend without license, you don't ensure that mortgages are registered properly, company resolutions are not made. Sometimes even you lend to ghosts, you know. So a lot of mistakes and non-compliance there, which is also on the other side for the borrower. Can you give us, in your understanding, can you give us your assessment on whether this non-compliance with the legal regulatory framework is also contributing to counterfeit services or fake services in the financial sector? How do you ameliorate that?
of course.
And is it important by that to comply with the law? Because many people say, oh, you know, but you took the money. There's no need to comply with the law. Who is being fake there?
Legal compliance is non-negotiable, if I may start. Because, I mean, there is an underlying governing legal framework that, you know, governs relationship in the financial services sector between a client and a service provider. Failure to comply with such framework then is counterfeit.
But some lenders think that provided I gave you money, if I broke the law, don't say anything, just return the money. How do you understand that?
And that's where
narrative?
You legal practitioners will say an illegality is not remedied by another by a legality or something. A legality can't sit on an illegality, meaning that if there's an illegal contract, for instance, you can't have something legalized
Afterwards.
because everything is hinged on an illegal framework and everything else falls away.
So what's your understanding? If Pesasa lent money on a contract which was declared to be illegal, or if today Pesasa was found not to have a license, but it lent, is your understanding that you can recover?
That lending is, first of all, ultra vires if it is done without the regulatory,
without the support of the law.
Yes. So you are under, well, you could recover, but not through the law that you have not complied with. There could be a relationship between the service provider and the client, and most of the times it is this pressure from the relationship that blinds the eye to the compliance. Not necessarily that somebody is intentionally blinding their eye to the compliance, but the relationship blinds both to the importance of the compliance. And once the money goes, and then it is no longer an important issue. The customer has a need, it is time barred, he has a contract to execute. An example of CHOGM, the conference is happening in 2 weeks' time. I have not completed
The hotel or whatever
yes,
it is.
I have not done the driveway. I need to pave it as part of the contract that I have with the organizers of the event. Otherwise, they blacklist me. So you as a service provider understand this need, and then we agree to finance and then comply at a later stage.
So
And
that's where you drop the ball, you guys.
And
And
then
then later, it's found that you didn't follow certain protocols, and the contract is declared illegal, and then you cry and say, but I gave you the money. So to what extent is ignorance of the law pushing us towards counterfeit behavior, and
huge.
to what extent?
Huge, a lot. Ignorance, not just the law, but even ignorance of the effects or dangers of the counterfeit products themselves. Because law aside, if I am driving on a counterfeit tire, my family and I are at risk. If we are consuming furnace oil or
And you think
components
it's olive oil?
I mean, eventually it is.
But
A
still,
health
law is very important, because it is the law that provides legal protection for your trademark, for your product. You go to the law and you register this trademark as water, and therefore you are allowed exclusive commercial exploitation of that and putting it on the market, because that helps you to provide a distinguishing feature for your product as a trademark. So law is important. So, and you are saying that ignorance of the law and ignorance of the dangers of
Combined.
counterfeits combined
Yeah.
is basically,
Is where we are now.
we have there the dangers, as you see. We cannot differentiate. And by the way, even in the financial services, we don't differentiate you. You are the same. We all think the people who are lending money or whatever, from a consumer side, there is no difference. You are born of the same mother.
Well, we are required to present or publish our license or regulatory approval in
Not
the- in
only
the-
that, you
in
are
the
also
areas of-
supposed to publish the consumer, a statement on the consumer
Protection.
rights and protection and so on. But you don't. A customer goes to borrow money, and
they don't
the
know where
only
to complain.
thing that the lender will tell them are the terms. This is the interest and so on. But they never tell the consumer, the borrower, their rights. And yet you are obliged by law to bring to the attention of this borrower the rights they have.
They even have a right to
You don't even,
come back after 30 days of beyond post drawdown
Yes.
and say that there is something they didn't understand.
yes. But do you know what
That's-
happens in the financial sector in Uganda? Most lenders will not give the borrower a copy of the loan agreement, a copy of the mortgage. All the documents are given to the bank and withheld. So the customer, sometimes even to get a bank statement is a problem. This kind of conduct, do you see it as one? Where is that as a driver in Dankani
I
there?
actually see on the tariff guide of financial institutions where they say that a current account comes with a free monthly statement.
It is a right. I'll
Yes.
tell you that.
Back in the day, I would pick up in the PO box my Musei's bank statements. They would be posted. Today, if
You are charged.
if I ask for a statement, even that free one, I have to pay for it. And that's the counterfeit you're talking about. You say it is free. Now, I have not got statements for the last 8 months. So I come and say, give me my statement for the last 8 months because you have not been giving me the monthly one. And you say, we will charge you. And then they charge you, I think, 30,000 per page, depending on how busy your account is. 300,000 shillings to have a statement of, you know, that you are charging per page. Some pages don't even have any information. It has the bank account and the number and then some lines, debit, credit, because of the formatting of the system and how it presents the statement. But because the page has come out of the printer, the system charges.
So and yet, our population is largely unbanked. We have very few people with bank accounts. I think if mobile money wasn't there, many people would not be included in the financial sector.
Mobile money now is actually perceived to be an account.
It's now like a bank account.
It's a bank account.
So don't you think that there is some systemic failure within the industry itself that is creating an impediment to this move to financial inclusion, to get more and more people into the sector? Don't you think you guys, as the financial sector, you now need to point the torch, flash a light on yourselves? That will also help to make a behavior change among the consumers, the defaults and so on. I think the fish starts to rot from the head.
Certainly, and that is one of our major drivers at Camro with Pesasa. We are targeting our ideal client is that business, that vendor who is unable to qualify for credit elsewhere because they have no documentation, adequate documentation, they have no sufficient collateral, they have not yet, established themselves to the level where you would ordinarily be called financially included. Because there's one argument around financial inclusion, starting from, identification, record keeping, registration, etc., etc. But for a small business, first of all, registration can be very expensive. Information about what form of registration suits them is inadequate, or nobody is giving them this information. We have all these street vendors and very many informal businesses that may want or would like to register, for instance, with the URSB, and then it is very deterrent. It is either very expensive. Previously, it even used to be manual. You have to go there. They had few offices in major cities. Now they have decentralized. They've made it a bit. They've made it online. You can go on the website. But how many of our informal sectors have the capability to go online? You also see a lot of financial inclusion innovations that are web driven. When the web or internet,
Cheaper cash. Is it cheaper cash or something?
well, I don't like to mention names, Mango Cash or whatever.
They help people to transact.
Yes, and they are web-based. When your penetration is not supporting the infrastructure that you're trying to place. You've seen web applications to support farmers, which in my view is even counterfeit itself. I'm saying I'm supporting farmers in the rural areas and I'm coming up with a web solution when I know that they only have feature phones or they don't have access to the internet. Or even if they did, do not know how to use it. And require, if I'm saying I'm bringing a solution, it shouldn't be a solution I'm thinking about. It should be a solution that my target customer can use. Many times, all these innovations, it's really a problem I have envisaged for myself, a solution I have designed for myself. And then when I go actually into the public, to my target customer, first of all, it's not a real problem to him. I have
that you create the problem.
I've thought it,
and you also present a solution.
Present a solution, and I'm saying,
so Stephen, don't you therefore think that Since money is the lifeblood of the economy, money, we all need money. So if we are here saying we want to fight counterfeits in the society, don't you think the starting point should be clean up the financial sector? Because that's where all the evil starts from. The guy selling counterfeits used money, got a loan and brought it. Even the person who is buying, some people still, they work somewhere, earn money, or even they borrow. So don't you think that the starting point should be the financial sector? We clean it up, then agriculture will be cleaned, health will be cleaned.
In a way, yes, and in a way, no. I think the starting point is everybody.
But
Starting
everybody
point-
uses money.
Yes, what I'm saying is, yes, if you place it at money, but everybody uses money, so the starting point is everybody, not really the financial services service providers. Everybody, consumers, the standards and authorities, the legal,
The judges, the
practitioners,
police, the
the
doctors,
judiciary,
everyone.
everybody should. Most importantly, I believe the consumers, because if the consumers said no to counterfeit,
But the consumer is everyone. The president is a consumer. The vice president is a consumer. The chief justice, everyone is a consumer.
and that's where the collaboration will start. You see now, the law enforcer
Is
if
a
he has
consumer
no
also.
information, he cannot enforce adequately.
But he's
He
a
will-
consumer.
He will possibly consider a bribe for a driver without a valid license.
He
to
takes the
be
bribe.
on the road.
And then the driver, a few kilometers away, accident,
Kills
30
his
people.
child or kills
His relative.
and then that bribe is not even sufficient to cover
buy the coffee.
the burial costs. So that awareness from consumers then presents this enabling environment for the cooperation between the authorities, the legal, even the standards guys, because all these products come through a set of checks and balances that are in place to be cleared for import. And you know, for some reason we are, I think, the dumping zone for everything.
Not you think, it's a
counterfeit.
fact.
Everything counterfeit
It's a fact.
coming from the whole globe.
It's a fact. I'll tell you, a lot of the olive oil on the market is fake.
As opposed to our friends in the Western world where the emphasis is driven by the people themselves. So they will not buy counterfeit. They will not buy and not request for a receipt because somebody wants to sell something cheaper and cheat the tax authority because they are selling
And then
outside.
drive on a bad road and complain the government is not working.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, as we close, Stephen, now that you've seen the magnitude of the problem, and you even have a view which we hold that the starting point is the consumer. Counterfeits are on the market because we provide the market. If we were not buying them, they would not come.
You would have no space.
What is your message to the public? What role should they play? What should we do? What is PESASA going to do about this when you live here as an ambassador of our survival, our collective survival?
Well,
what is your message?
I have two different messages. As PESASA, we are committed to drive the inadequate cooperation. So we will become, or we are, part of the cooperation. So as a financial services institution, our vision is to become a digital bank providing sustainable financial solutions within frontier and emerging markets. And we are going to do just that. So we're going to be part of the cooperating entity. As an individual, the message is tell a friend to tell a friend. It's as simple as that. If I am posting good morning on my WhatsApp groups, I have a responsibility to post and not to counterfeit. Have a possibility.
There's something you said that counterfeits, cheap things are expensive. So can you just, because some people think they are saving. You see, you said affordability, poverty. Is poverty an excuse to buy counterfeits?
My mzee had one good one which I like to borrow. It is more expensive to be poor. You might say I can't afford, but you're living more expensively by, attaching yourself to I can't afford. Find
You
ways
end up
to
paying more.
Exactly. We discussed the school children, the shoes.
Every time you're buying shoes.
There's a cheaper shoe and there's a good shoe that when we grew up, a shoe went down, was used 3-4 years. My elder brother had a shoe, it was still,
They gave it
when
to
it
you
couldn't
as
fit him, I could use it. And it was still a shoe that I could use. I couldn't say
you just
no
put
to
a
it.
polish, a layer of polish, and you're
Try
good to
that
go.
now. Try that now. Every time you're buying a pair of shoes. So if an original pair is 100,000 shillings and you've bought 10 at 20,000 shillings at the end of the year, it's pointless. Especially the kids, they'll kick stones, they'll kick things. And we played soccer with the shoes that we had. We didn't have soccer boots. Now they have variety. They have 3-4 pairs, and every year you
But they are all sick.
Exactly.
Stephen, it has been a pleasure to host you here. And we now know about Camro Capital. If we want money, we shall be coming to you. We need to end here. This has been the League of the Genuine.
And to
We've
the
been
viewers, please
Yes.
tell a friend to tell a friend about saying no to counterfeit.
Say no to counterfeits is the message here. We need to sign off by thanking those who have come this journey with us on this program where we discuss counterfeits. A big thank you for those who make a date with us every evening. For those who are new here, this is the only show on the planet that discusses the important but often ignored subject of counterfeits. You are able to reach us on our social media handles. You can like, you can subscribe, you can share. We need, like Stephen has said, to spread the gospel. Tell a friend to tell a friend that counterfeits are not good for you. Would like to sign off by saying buy and sell genuine always.
League of the